In this tutorial, I'll show you how to create neon signs in Blender. So in this video, we're going to be creating this classic open neon sign, which would be in the front of a store or a shop or a restaurant. So once you're finished following this tutorial, you can use this same method to create many different types of neon signs. And if you'd like to help support the channel and purchase the tutorial project files, you can find the project files with the links in the description on my Gumroad store and my Patreon page and the Blender Market. And included in the project files are all of these different neon sign 3D models, so if you're interested in purchasing the neon sign model pack, you can find the links to that in the description. And if you'd like to help support my channel monthly, then you can join my Patreon page where you can get access to lots of Blender content while supporting the channel monthly. Now I'm going to be downloading a few different resources online, so the links will be in the video description if you want to download the same resources. So here on Polyhaven, I'm going to be downloading this Brown Photo Studio 02 to get some nice realistic lighting in the world, and I'll just download the 1K HDR version. And then here on Pexels, I'm going to be downloading this open sign here, and we're going to be using this as a reference image to help us with the modeling. And then for the background wall behind the neon sign, I'm going to be using my Procedural smooth concrete material. So if you want to purchase the smooth concrete material, you can purchase it on my Gumroad store. You can also get it on my Patreon page, or if you'd like to watch the tutorial and learn how to create it yourself, you can find the tutorial link in the description. And also, if you're one of my customers who has my Ultimate Blender Procedural Material Pack, this material is in my Ultimate Material Pack, so you can just drag and drop it from the asset library into the project. So in a new scene in Blender, I'm just going to start by deleting everything, and then I'll hit 1 to go to front view. And then from my file browser, I'm going to drag and drop the reference image that I downloaded from Pexels. I'm just going to drop it in here, and then I can scale it. And let's also rotate it a little bit because it's a little bit cockeyed. So let's rotate it so it's going more straight, and just maybe scale up a bit and stick it here into the center of the scene, just like that. And then if we go here to the object data properties, I can turn on the opacity, and we'll just drag the opacity way down so it's much more subtle. So it'll be easier to see what we're modeling. So let's now move this into the center, and then let's go to the add menu, and I'm just going to add a plane. And I'm going to rotate the plane. Let's rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees, and then I'll hit Control A and just apply the rotation. Let's now go into edit mode, and I can just select this two sides here, so the two vertices on this side, and we'll just delete the vertices. So I can now select everything, and we can scale these two vertices down, and I can rotate it and just kind of stick it right here. And we're just going to stick these two vertices here on top of the words, and we're going to be modeling kind of like a wireframe of the words. So there's two ways to kind of model the wireframe of the words. One thing you can do is select the vertex and then hit E to extrude and then place it there, hit E to extrude, place it there. The other way to do this is to hold down the Control key and right click. So just Control right click, kind of go along here, it's going to extrude it out, and we can just model the shape of those letters. So now what we can do is just hold down the shift key, and we can just select two of the vertices, and I can duplicate it, and let's rotate it like that, and I'll bring it down here. And then if we just select this vertex here, we'll just bring it up here. So hit G to grab and bring it up here. Now I'm not going to be connecting the words yet. We're first going to just model all the words, and then we'll be connecting them later. Because in real life, neon signs are connected. So this tube is going to go back, kind of behind the words, go over here, and then it'll be kind of lit up on the front. But let's just continue to model this. So I'm just going to select this vertex here, and I'll just hit E to extrude, or you can Control click. And here around the rounder parts, I'm going to make sure that it's a little bit more detailed so that there's a bit more quality and detail there on the edges. But then here it's where it's really straight, it can be a bit longer. So I'm just going to continue to do that around here and just end it right there. We'll now select these two vertices, and I'll duplicate them, and let's just put it like right up here. And then I can bring this over and extrude it and move that down. Again, I'm adding more vertices here along the curve so that it has a bit more detail. And then just go along here like that. And then if I just select two vertices, I can duplicate it. Now let's scale it up and just stick it here in the middle of the E like that. And then we'll select these two, we'll duplicate it, and we'll rotate them, stick it down here. Also, we should save our project. So if you haven't already, click on File and Save. And I'll just save it as a neon sign with my project files and save Blender file. And then just hit Control S as you're working on it every now and then to save it. So let's bring this up here. We can just extrude it out here, or Control click, whatever you like better. I kind of like extruding it a little bit better, so I'm just going to continue to hit the E key to extrude. And then finally right up here at the very end. So we're now going to do this kind of blue circle around here. So let's just select these two vertices. We can duplicate it. We'll scale it down like that. And then again, just like we did before, we're going to extrude it. We're just going to extrude extrude this along here, along the blue tube there. All right, ending right there. We're going to duplicate this vertice or vertex. We're going to duplicate the vertex, stick it there. We're going to extrude this out and just do the last one. All right, that's finished. So we now have the entire thing outlined. So now what we're going to do is go back to object mode, and we're going to select the object, and we're going to click on object, and we're going to go down here to convert, and we're going to convert it to a curve. So this way, if I go into edit mode, you can see these are now curve points, so they aren't vertices anymore. Now why I'm converting them to a curve is that we can add some thickness to them. So let's open up the side panel, and we'll go to the object data properties, and I'm going to go down here to the geometry, and then go down here to the bevel, and I can drag up this bevel depth amount, and we can just make it just as big as we want. So I think maybe turning this to like a 0.6 is pretty good. It will depend on the size of the letters, how thick you want them to be. I might even make this a little bit bigger, so a 0.065. So that's what I'm going to do for mine. So I'll use a depth value of 0.065, but you can adjust this just to fit the reference. So something like that. Now you can see that it's really blocky, so we need to use the object context menu, and we need to click on shade smooth. And then also let's hit Control 2. Control 2 is going to add the subdivision surface modifier to kind of smooth it out. So now what I want to do is go into edit mode, and I want to find any spots that might need a bit more detail. So for example, I might select these two curve handles, and you can use the object context menu, and you can click on subdivide. The other way to do this is to click on segments and then click on subdivide. So we subdivided it, so I can now just like select this part, kind of bring it up just to make that a little bit sharper, because that looks a little bit better. So for example, if I were to like extrude this up here, you can see this looks really weird because it's kind of like stretched and it gets thinner. So you could like select these 2 points, and then use the object context menu and subdivide it, and then you can kind of drag these points down here, and that way the curve can be a bit more smooth. You can see right here it still looks a bit pinched, so if you selected these 2 edge points, those 2 dots there, you could use the object context menu and subdivide it, and then kind of drag this over here to make it a bit more smooth. So I'm going to just hit Control Z to undo that, because I don't need to add that right there. But if you have any points that you need to add a bit more detail, you can kind of subdivide it. Now I want to make this blue one its own object, because I'm going to have it be a different material. So I'll go into edit mode, and let's just deselect everything, and then if you just hover your mouse over this piece, I'll hit the L key to select that entire piece. I'll also hit the L key to select that entire piece, so just those pieces are selected, and I'll now hit P, and that'll separate them. So the P key is going to separate your selection. So now that's its own object. So now what I want to do is connect all the letters. So what I'm going to do is go into edit mode, and I'm going to take this side, and we'll go to top view, and I'll extrude it and rotate it and extrude it and rotate it, and then we'll just extrude it back, and it will just end right there. Now for this side of the O, this side is going to extrude back and then go over and then connect to the P. So we'll go to top view again, we can extrude it and rotate it, and we'll just bring that back there and then extrude it and rotate it again over like that. And if this part is stretching a little bit, you can select both of these points, and you can again subdivide it and then just bring this point over and kind of rotate it. That looks a little bit better. Let's go to front view again by hitting 1 on the numpad, and I can extrude this out here, and then I can rotate it and extrude it. So let's bring it over, go to top view, and just extrude it like that. And then if we go here to this side, I want to connect these. So if we select this part, the bottom of the P will bring it up, and then I can extrude it and rotate it just like that, bring it in. And then if we select both of these edge points, I can hit the F key, and that is going to fill it. And then if you want to, you can select some of these points here, and you could maybe scale them on the Z axis and scale them on the X axis to kind of flatten them. So that looks a little bit better. So now you can see the entire thing is connecting. So we're now going to select the P here, and let's bring it back a little bit, and we'll go to top view, and then I can extrude it and rotate it, and we're going to extrude this back, and then we'll extrude it over, and this piece is going to connect to the bottom of the E. So we'll bring it way over here, we'll go to top view, and we'll extrude it and rotate it, and you can see it's kind of stretching right here. And so to fix that, I'm just going to kind of bring these back here, just bring them back so it's a bit more smooth, and then extrude that down just like that. And then we need to connect the bottom of the E to this piece. So if you select these 2 pieces, you can hit F to fill them, and then you might want to select these 2 pieces and subdivide it, and then you can kind of drag this piece over, select these 2 pieces and subdivide that as well, so that when it rotates, it's a little bit more smooth. That's a little bit better. So now we're going to have the top of the E go back and go to the middle part of the E. So we're going to do the same thing as we did before, just extruding it and rotating it. And then once you rotate it, you can extrude it down like that. And then you can extrude it and rotate it. And then this piece here, you could bring it back a little bit, and you can extrude it and rotate it. And then if you select these 2 pieces, just hit F to fill them. So now we're going to have this E part go to the bottom of the N. So let's first go to front view and bring it back a little bit, and then on top view, you can extrude it, and it kind of is helpful if you go to wireframe view, that can kind of help. All right, just extrude that there. Then we're gonna have this extrude down to the bottom of the N, and let's bring both of them up and we can extrude it and rotate it like that. Do the same thing for this side, and then just fill them together. And then for the last part here, this N, this last N, let's go to side view by hitting 3 on the numpad. I'll go into wireframe and I'm just going to extrude it up and rotate it and then bring it all the way back. Just like that. So now you can see all of the letters are connecting. Now we're going to do the same thing for this piece here. So this piece, it's going to just end here, but right here to here, we're going to have it connecting. So we'll go into edit mode. Let's first go to the starting, and we'll go to side view, and I can just extrude it down and rotate it and then extrude it to the very end. Let's now go to this side. We're going to select this side here. We'll go to top view, and we're going to extrude it and rotate it and then extrude it way back and then just extrude it over. And then let's bring it way down here. And then we're just going to make these two last pieces connect. Extrude them and rotate them, and then just select both of these and hit F to fill that. And then finally, the last part here at the very end, we're just going to go to front view, we'll extrude it, and then kind of go here to the side and just extrude it and rotate it and just bring it all the way back here to the very end. Now, one more thing I want to do is go to top view, and I'm going to select both of the objects and then go into edit mode with both of them selected. And I'll go into wireframe and I'll just hit B for the box select. And I'm just going to box select all of these ones here at the very back, and I'm going to scale them, and I'll scale them along the X-axis, actually the Y-axis, scale them along the Y-axis so they're a bit more flat. So they're all kind of at the same point. Just like that. And then if you want to, you could also box select them and maybe bring them back a little bit along the Y if they're a little bit too far out. So now let's do some lighting. So I'm going to click over here to go to the world properties. Let's click here on the yellow dot next to color, and I'll choose environment texture, and then we'll just click on open and open a texture. And here's the brown photo studio that I'll be downloading from polyhaven.com. Link is in the video description, and I'll just click on open image. Let's go into the rendered viewport mode to see how this is looking. Now what I want to do is also scroll down here to the color management, and I'll use the view transform of AGX. And then the look here, I'm going to choose medium high contrast because I think that looks pretty good. Also, one other thing I want to do with the lighting is I want to go over here to the world properties, and I want to make the neon sign glowing, of course, but to make it glowing and to make it look nicer when it's glowing, I want it to be kind of a dark room. So we're going to turn this strength value way down to like a 0.2 here on the world. And that way it's not going to be quite as bright, so the bloom will be stronger. Let's now do the materials. So I'm going to select the main object, and we'll click over here to go to the shading workspace. Let's go into the rendered view, and I'll add a new material, and I can just rename this material to glass. So what we're going to do is make a basic glass material. So I'm going to take the base color and make it fully white. And then if we open up the transmission, I'm going to turn the transmission all the way up to 1, and I can see it looks a lot more like glass. And then here on the roughness, I'm going to turn this down to a 0.15, so it is pretty shiny. You could turn it down all the way if you want to, but I'm going to leave it just to a small roughness of like a 0.15. Also, let's take the glass material and we're going to add it to this other object here so they both have the glass material. So now what I want to do is I want to make these back parts be darker, because the back parts, I don't want them to be glowing. I want them to kind of have a black finish or kind of like a paint over the top of them. So let's duplicate the principled shader, drop it up here, and I can turn the transmission all the way down and just close that. And then also this base color here, I'm going to make this fully black. And then here on the roughness, I'll turn the roughness up to like a 0.3. So if I now put the shader here into the surface, you can see we now just have this simple black material. So now what I want to do is have the front of the letters be the glass and then the back of the letters be the black. So to do this, we need to first mix them together. So I need to enable the Node Wrangler add-on. So I'm going to click on Edit and go to the Preferences. And you can just go to the Add-ons tab and you can search for Node Wrangler and just enable the Node Wrangler. And if for some reason the Node Wrangler isn't here, you can check the Get Extensions tab and search for the Node Wrangler. But let's now close the user preferences. So what I'm now going to do is select both of the shaders, and I'm going to press Ctrl-0. Ctrl-0 is the shortcut key to add this mix shader, and since we had both of them selected, it mixed them both together into the mix shader. So now I can blend between only using the glass or only using the black, but what I want to do is create a gradient where the front is going to be the glass, and then the back of it is going to be the black. So let's go to the add menu and I can search for the gradient texture. Let's drop this here. And with the gradient selected, I'll hit Ctrl-T. That's going to add the texture, coordinate, and mapping nodes. So let's Ctrl-Shift and select the gradient texture to preview it. it. Now it looks all white right now, but if you look over here on this side, you can see it looks a bit dark. So we need to rotate it. So we're going to go to the rotation on the mapping, and we're going to turn the Z rotation to 90 degrees. Now, depending on the rotation of your sign, you might need to use the X and Y instead, but if you're just doing it front on like I am, then you'll just use the Z. So we rotate it over by 90 degrees, and now the entire thing looks black. So what I need to do is adjust the gradient. So we also have this location value, and so what I'm going to do is use the X location, and I can drag this around, and you can see if I drag it around, maybe just turn it to like a 0.6, you can see now it looks white here and then black over here. So we need to make it much more contrasted now because the blend is way too big. So what we're going to do is search for a color ramp, and we're going to put the color ramp here after the gradient, and let's just drag these up here so there's a bit more space. And then we can also drag these back here, and let's take the color ramp and we can drag it way bigger so it's a bit longer so it's easier to work with. So I can now drag the white tab and drag the black tab, and we can make it super contrasted by dragging the two tabs really close together. So I just want everything in the background to kind of be black, but then just the words are going to be white. So now we have this mask here using the gradient, so we can take the color ramp color and we can put that into the factor, and then we can just preview the principled shader. Let's also just drag the color ramp smaller and drag these over so it looks a bit nicer. So now if you take a look at the material, you can see it's black here and then glass over here. Now for some reason the materials are flipped. What you can do is take this principled shader and put it into the bottom one and this principled shader into the top one, but I don't want to do that because that's the wrong direction. So I want the glass here on the front. Let's now save the project again. So let's now create the glowing material. So what I want to do is select this object, and I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate and then just hit Escape so it stays where it is. What I want to do is have two different tubes, and one tube is going to be smaller inside the glass tube, and then that's going to have the emission material. So let's click over here to go to the object data properties, and let's just close all of these, and we're going to open up the geometry and go to bevel, and here in the bevel depth I want to make this quite a bit smaller. So let's go to wireframe view so we can kind of see this better. Just make it a bit smaller. I think maybe turning it to like a 0.03 is probably going to be pretty good, or maybe even like a little bit smaller, or a 0.027, so it's a bit smaller. So let's now close the side panel, and we're going to delete the glass material. We'll click on new to add a new material, and I can just call this red glow. Let's now go into the rendered view so we can see what it looks like. And to make it glowing, we want to open up the emission. We're going to turn the strength to 1. And then for the color, we can just make this a bright red color. So now we have kind of the glass on the outside and then the glowing on the inside. Let's do the same exact thing for the other objects. We'll select this object, we'll duplicate it, hit escape so it stays where it is. And let's go here to the bevel depth, and I'm going to turn this to the same value. So this one, I'm going to hit Control C to copy that. So it's a 0.027. So if I click on this one, hit Control V to paste it, so it's 0.027. So now let's close this, and we'll delete the glass material, and on the drop down we're going to add the red glow, but then we're going to click on this button to duplicate the material, and let's rename this to blue glow instead. Then here on the color, instead of being red, we're just going to make it a nice bright blue color. That's looking pretty good. Now one big thing is missing, and that is of course the glow effect to really make it stand out, so let's do that. So I'm going to click over here to go to the compositing. We'll click on use nodes to use the compositing nodes, and I'm going to search for a glare node, and we'll just stick that right there. And then let's Control Shift select the glare node to preview it. So we're going to add the viewer and the composite into the glare. Now I want to preview it using the real-time compositor in the viewport. So what I'm going to do is click here in the corner and drag out to split the window. And then if I click here to change the editor type, we'll change it to the 3D viewport. Let's go into the rendered viewport mode. And then if we scroll right over here and click on the render settings, let's take the compositor and turn it to always so we can always see it. So now you can see that glow effect. Now on the streaks here, I think that changing it to bloom looks a lot better. So what I'm going to do is turn the size to 5, and then also you can drag the threshold around, and I'm going to turn the threshold to a 1.6, and then here on the quality, I'm going to turn this to high. Now it doesn't really look very strong, but there's one more thing I want to do with the materials. So I'm going to click back here to go to the shading workspace, and if I just double click on this to select the glowing one, what I want to do is go to the transmission and turn the transmission weight all the way up. And this is going to make it look a little bit more like glass inside, and it'll also make things a little bit brighter and glow more. So we'll select the other one here, we'll open up the transmission and turn this all the way up 2, 1. And then you can see the glow isn't showing up here in the 3D viewport. That's because we need to scroll right over here and click down here, and then the compositor, turn this to always. So now you can see we kind of have that nice glow effect. So here's it without the transmission. It just isn't quite as bright. If I turn up that transmission weight there, it just makes it look a bit more like shiny glass, and it makes the glow a bit brighter. Let's click here to go back to the layout, and I now want to add a background. So I'll go to solid view, we'll just go to the add menu, and I'll add a plane, and I'll scale the plane up, and we can apply the scale, and then I can rotate the plane on the x-axis by 90 degrees. And if I go here to the side, let's just drag it back so the end is just right there like that. Let's go into the rendered view to see how that's looking. And then for the material in the background, you can of course add whatever material you want. I'm going to be adding my procedural smooth concrete material. So I have a tutorial on how to create that material. So if you want to learn how to create it yourself, you can find the link to that in the description. Or if you want to purchase the concrete material, you can purchase it with the links in the description. Now, because I have my Ultimate Blender Procedural Material Pack installed as an asset library, I can just click over here to go to my Assets tab. And then here's my Ultimate Procedural Material Pack. Let's go here to the search, and I can just start to type in concrete. We'll take the smooth concrete and just drag and drop it onto the plane. So now if I go into the rendered view, you can see we have that nice smooth material on the back of the plane. Now, if you don't have my Ultimate Procedural Material Pack and you just want to add in the material, what you can do is use Blender's Append feature. So you can click on File, and then you can click on Append. Then you can just locate to the folder where you have the procedural material. I'll just go into this Blender file with the procedural material. You can then go here to material, and then you can just add in the procedural smooth concrete. And then if you just select the plane and go to the materials and click on it, you can just add the procedural smooth concrete material that you've imported into the Blender file. Now there are just a few things that I want to do to this. So one thing that I want to do is maybe turn the scale down to like a 0.8, maybe even a little bit smaller to like a 0.6. And then also I want to take the bump strength and I want to turn that to like a 0.05 and a 0.05 on this one as well, so that it's a little bit more smooth. And then one more thing I want to do for this scene to look a bit nicer is I'm going to take both of the colors and just make them a little bit darker. And if you purchase this procedural material with the links in the description, then you'll also get this custom node group. So it'll come in this custom node group so you can easily change the look of the material. So I'll go back here to the layout. Also in the layout, let's click here on the drop down on the viewport shading, and I'm going to turn the compositor to always so we can see that glowing effect. Now another thing I forgot to do is actually delete the reference image. So if I just go to wireframe, let's just click on the reference image right here and we can just delete the reference because we don't need it anymore. So now what I want to do is create a metal mount so you can mount the neon sign onto the wall, and then we're also going to be creating like a power supply and a cord. So we'll go to the add menu and I'm just going to add a cube, and we'll go into edit mode and I can just scale the cube way down, and then I can scale it out on the x-axis so it's a lot longer, maybe scale it up a bit, and then we can scale it down the y-axis to make it nice and flat. And then back in object mode, we're going to drag this back and just stick it next to the back of the wall like that. And if we select the wall, we might want to drag the wall back a little bit as well. Let's go into edit mode and I'm going to bring this up and let's drag it over here so that this blue neon tube is just going right here into the mount. Then we're going to duplicate it and move the entire thing down, and we're going to bring it down so that this bottom neon part here is sticking into the tube. So just like that. Let's go back to object mode and I'm going to select this object and hide it, and select this object and hide it just to get it out of the way. And I also want to add some metal pieces which are connecting these two metal pieces. So we'll go into edit mode and I'm just going to duplicate this piece and we'll rotate it on the y-axis by 90 degrees. I can scale it down and then scale it down on the z-axis like that. We're just going to scale it on the Y a little bit so it's in the center there, and then we'll bring it over here, and then we'll duplicate it and bring another one over there. Let's go back to object mode, and I'll hit Alt-H to unhide the objects that we added. So now what I want to do is go into edit mode. We're going to go to the face select, and we're just going to select this face, and we'll hit the L key to select all the linked vertices. And I'm going to bring this piece here so that this tube can go into that metal piece like that. And then we'll do the same thing over for this side. So we'll hit the L key to select this piece and bring it over. And I can scale this piece up on the Z axis and bring it up here. We can also select the top face and bring it down. And that way this metal tube at the end will go into that piece. So what I now want to do is go into wireframe, and I'm going to shift select both of these at the same time. And we'll go into edit mode. And I'm going to deselect everything, and we're just going to box select the very ends of both of those tubes, and we're going to bring them back in so they go into that metal piece. And then we'll do the same thing here. So go into wireframe, we'll select both of those tubes, and in edit mode, we're just going to box select the points there and bring them in so they go back inside there. And let's do the same thing for these other ones here. So select these two, go into edit mode, and we'll just bring those back. And the last one here, so this one, bring that back in there. So now if we select the back metal piece, let's click over here to go to the modifiers, and I'm going to click on add modifier, and let's add a bevel modifier. And we'll zoom in here to kind of see the edge. So I want to add more detail, so we'll turn the segments up to like a 4, and then I can drag the amount down, and I can hold down the shift key as I drag the amount to make it more subtle movement or more sensitive. And then I can just use the object context menu and shade it smooth. And then also I can click on add modifier, and I can add the weighted normal modifier, and that's going to flatten and sharpen up those flat areas. Now one more thing that I want to do is add kind of like a big power supply box. So we'll go into edit mode, and I can just select one of these faces here, and we'll duplicate it. And we'll scale it down on the x-axis, and let's bring it over here, and let's bring it out a bit, and then we can extrude it back like that. You can hit the L key to select the entire thing, and let's just bring it up here. Let's kind of stick it here in that corner, and then also I need to hit Shift N to recalculate the normals. So what we're now going to do is have a wire or a cord. So we'll go to the add menu, and I'm going to go to curve, and we're going to add a Bezier curve. Bring the curve right over here. We'll go into edit mode, and I can rotate this curve handle, and we're going to stick the first curve handle right here into the power supply. And then we'll take the other side of the curve and we'll bring it down here so it looks like the cord is hanging. And then we'll extrude it, and we can scale it, and let's rotate it like that so it looks like we have a nice hanging cord. And then also to flatten this, we'll scale it on the y-axis, and we'll type 0 and enter just to kind of flatten that cord and bring it back. So now we need to add some thickness to the cord. So if we click here to go to the object data properties, let's go to the geometry bevel, and we can turn up this depth just to a pretty small value. And then if you zoom in here, you can see it looks a little bit low quality. So if I scroll up to the very top, let's take this resolution and maybe turn it up to like a 30. So that way it's a lot higher resolution. So if we go into the rendered viewport mode, we now need to add a black material to this. So if we select the piece here, the back piece, we'll go to the materials. Let's click on new. I can just rename this to metal. And for the base color, I'm going to make this a pretty dark gray. And then I'll turn the metallic value all the way up to 1. And then I'll turn the roughness down to maybe just like a 0.3. So it's kind of a shiny metal. And then also let's select the cord here, and I can just add the same metal material, or you can add like a black cord material, whatever you want to do. All right, so let's now add a camera and just render this out. So I'll go to the add menu. We'll just add a camera, and then if I just move my view to where I want the camera to be, I'll hit Control Alt Numpad 0. Control Alt Numpad 0 will bring the camera to where I am. And then if I have the camera selected, I'll hit G and then tap the Z key twice to kind of bring this in and out. And I might want to bring the camera down a little bit and bring it out a little bit. Let's now go over here to the render properties, and we're going to open up the sampling. And I'm going to turn on the render denoise here. So turn on the denoise under the render, so it denoises the image when it renders it. And also I'll turn the samples to 100. So I can hit Control S to save this, and then we'll click on render and render the image. And there's the final render. So then to save this render, you can just click on image and just click on save as and save the final image. So that's going to be it for this tutorial. So that's how you create neon signs in Blender. So you can now use this method to create your own neon signs. So thank you for watching this tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. And if you'd like to help support the channel and purchase the finished tutorial project files, you can find that linked in the video description. And when you purchase the project files, as well as getting this open sign, you'll also get all of these different neon sign 3D assets which you can use in your projects. And if you enjoy my tutorials and you'd like to help support the channel monthly, then you can join my Patreon page. So if you join one of my Patreon memberships, you'll get access to lots of Blender content like 3D models and assets, tutorial files, artwork project files, procedural materials, geometry node modifier setups, and lots more Blender content on my Patreon page, and you'll also be supporting the channel each month. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.